Women's Soccer Review Podcast with Duane Rollins and Jonathan Tannenwald on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Women's Soccer Review here on the Sports Podcasting Network. I'm Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer, and let me admit off the top, we are battling through some gremlins here on the show this morning. Our producer, Kevin Laramie, might drop the outtakes at some point, and I probably wouldn't blame him. Duane Rollins is on the line from Toronto. His line is a little patchy, but Duane, if you're there, hello.
Hello, Jonathan. Happy Friday. This is Friday
when
we're recording.
Friday as we're recording. Same to you. Happy Friday. Our guest is Pardeep Cattry of Equalizer Soccer and many other outlets. Someone who I know quite well as she's based in the New York area, and she and I have crossed paths many times over the years at Sky Blue games, at Rutgers, Red Bull Arena, even down here in the Philly area a bunch. Hi, Pardeep. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Well, somebody is. That's good to hear. All right. We will do what we always do, which is review the games and then look ahead. We will review the games from Wednesday first. And, folks, if you thought that the NWSL was predictable, you might be new to the league or you were just flat out wrong, because it is nothing of the sort. OL Reign, out of nowhere, beat the Utah Royals after all of us spent this whole time saying that Farid Ben-Stidi wasn't a good coach and the players weren't playing good soccer. And maybe they aren't playing good soccer, but they went out and won anyway. So there. Pardeep, what did you make of it?
Well, what you said about how maybe they're not playing great soccer is still sticking out of my mind. But it's pretty cool that that there aren't goalless teams anymore in this tournament, which also is a reference to the later game where Sky Blue won. But yeah, it's not predictable at all, and I really, really like that.
What are we to make of the Reign? Because I'm not as down on Ben-Stidi as other people are, but I grant that that's because, having now talked to him a few times, I think he's actually got a half-decent coaching philosophy. And one of the things he said was his team, since it's been together, he hasn't seen some of what he has sort of termed the American-style aggression that he expected to see. And part of that, he thinks, is because he's a European coach and some of the players with the European experience are sort of adapting to him with a European mentality, and that's not really what he wants. Is that fair?
I guess that's a really good question of whether or not that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't go as far to say the Reign are particularly bad or anything, but maybe they are missing that sort of aggression. I think it's interesting that he might want them to play in such a way. I mean, I think I'm not that surprised that a coach who is in his first year at a team, and probably the fact that he's in a new league too, and on top of that didn't really have a terrific preseason because of, a pandemic, is not getting exactly what he wants to see out of his players after, 3 games now? None of that is particularly surprising to me. But although, that being said, a couple of other kind of first-time coaches are doing well. We could compare it to Craig Harrington, who he obviously played against in this game. And it seems like even though they lost, there seems to be some sort of clear collaboration there with the players and the coach. And they're at least starting to express some of the ideas he wanted to play. But now I'm talking about somebody else when you're asking me about Farid Ben-Stidi. But yeah, so those tend to be my feelings about that right now.
And what's your sense of Utah so far? Was what we saw in the first 2 games, and we might apply this to another game we're going to talk about in a moment. Was what we saw really sustainable over every game in this tournament when the games are coming thick and fast, and Amy Rodriguez and Vero Boquete are playing so much?
Honestly, that has been my thought as well, because he has not rotated a lot, Craig Harrington, and at some point that is going to take a toll on these players. Again, I keep talking about how they had imperfect preseasons, and on top of that, they're playing on turf It was impressive that the first game they showed that burst of energy right at the beginning, and then kind of that fell away, but they were able to sustain that in the second game. But yeah, that has been my concern at this point for Utah, is that right now we are seeing the same people play over and over again. At some point, that might not be sustainable, especially because their next game is going to be against a team that has like 3 days more rest than them.
And it's rotated a lot in this tournament. Let's talk about Sky Blue Houston. And for folks who don't know, although I'm sure many of you already do, Sky Blue is the team that Pardeep and I know the best, that we cover the most. And I was not impressed by their first couple games. I don't really know anybody who was, except for Freya Kuhn, who thought the defense was fine, which, okay, but the offense wasn't. And then all of a sudden, they come out of nowhere and jump on the dash and win 2-0 and look decent doing it. And I kept sitting here trying to figure out what really changed. And I don't know, because Ifeoma Onumonu didn't look great in the first game, and she looked much better in this one. And, maybe it's putting Naho Kawasumi on the left wing. I don't know. What do you think?
I think the performance from Sky Blue was really a demonstration of how well their midfield was playing. Kawasumi was great, and we saw her with that goal too. But the midfield three that day was Wold Moser-Boni and Jennifer Cudjoe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think I am.
Cudjoe or Cudjoe, one of the two, yeah.
Okay. Right, but the three of them played really, really well. Cudjoe especially, and this was her first start, I believe, for the team. And I think that combination of players did a really, really good job and allowed really the offense to finally actually show up.
And I'll tell you too, I mentioned Kawasumi, and in fairness, Cudjoe may well be part of the answer there, because I agree with you. She looked really good, and she has looked quite good in this tournament. And for those of you who don't know her story, it is really quite fascinating as to how she came out of a Division II college in the WPSL. The story is from your Equalizer colleague, Bria Felician. She was in the stands watching the NWSL title game last year, managed to make the connection to Sky Blue, just emailing teams and coaches and so on, basically got her place through a tryout, which is a heck of a story.
It really is.
Duane, what's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind is that we have to see a logjam of teams at 4 points right now. I think as we enter this fourth round of games, we're really going to see the impact of Orlando having to pull out of this tournament, because there is technically nothing to play for. I suppose you do want to avoid playing North Carolina in that first knockout game, but you also could make the argument that, to be the best, you have to beat the best, with the forgiveness to Ric Flair there. I guess what my general question would be, what should we expect from teams in this fourth round of games when they're really just jockeying for the game that really matters next?
I think that avoiding the courage is probably a good idea. I think each team's goals are probably going to be a little bit different, right? The Red Stars, for example, and probably the Thorns too. I think they're both the two teams without a win. I think they'll probably want to demonstrate some ability to win a game. And I think they'll also want to try to, but I think probably all of them will want to try to hone in what is working best for them. So, because the knockout rounds are going to be not that far away at that point. So you're really going to want to lock in whatever it is you want to lock in and make sure you know what you're going to do by the time the most important games show up.
Fair enough. Well, let's move into the games on the weekend. Before Jonathan sets up Monday, we'll talk about Sunday with that Washington-Houston at 12:30, of course, 12:30 Eastern, I should say, and Chicago-Utah at the 10 p.m. Eastern game. The Spirit Dash game, the Dash have been, in many ways, were the darlings of the tournament for a lot of people, playing exciting, playing surprising soccer. Then they kind of lay an egg, we'll say, in the Sky Blue game. What do you expect from them? Can they rebound from what was undoubtedly a fact or a flat performance?
I definitely think they can. I'm actually really looking forward to this game because the Spirit have also really, at times in this tournament, demonstrated an ability to where they look like one of the best teams in the league. So, and clearly the Dash are also trying to rise from their previous season's reputations. So I think both teams have a lot to offer. I think the Dash will, like, they've showed that that the offensive pickups that they've had in Shea Groom and also keeping Rachel Daly around have been good choices. If they can perform the way they've performed in the first and second game, then I think they could give the Spirit a tough time. But I still think I would give the edge to the Spirit in this one.
Well, yeah, on paper and just by my eyeball test, the Spirit have looked, as you say, perhaps as the best of the rest. We all acknowledge the Courage are a step above everyone. Do you see that, and do you think that they are firing on all cylinders right now?
I think I will say that, yeah, let's say that they are pretty close to firing on all cylinders right now. Rose Lavelle is actually getting chances to play for them as opposed to last season when she played really only a fraction of games. She's been great. Ashley Sanchez has been a really great addition after they drafted her. So it looks like all of the pieces are clicking in the right way. And I think after spending years out from being, like, not being a playoff team, they have a chance to go and go a little bit deep into this tournament. And I think they'll want to prove that really every step of the way.
I have a Houston question, which is what got into Jane Campbell against Sky Blue, coming off a line like that repeatedly. And, Vlatko Ananovsky is never going to judge anybody based on one game. But do you really want to have a bad game when he's in the stands?
I mean, probably not. Just an inkling there. But, I mean, right. It's one game. And I think for Jane Campbell, at least, being in the national team picture is sort of like a long-term idea, not just a short-term idea. And I was actually talking about this with someone else the other day, but right now, considering, the state of the world during a pandemic, who knows when the next time anybody will be able to play for the national team is. It's not, in my mind, the most relevant thing right now. And I think at some point, hopefully, sooner rather than later, all of these players will have more games to prove themselves to Vlatko Ananovsky and whatever other national team coach they have to prove themselves to. So, yeah, not great while he's there, but there will be other games.
All right. Well, speaking of other games, the late game, Chicago, Utah there, you sort of alluded to it already, but would you classify this as a near must win for Chicago if they are to do anything in this tournament?
Yeah, in a way, because I think primarily I think of this game as I'm very curious as to how Rory Dames wants to shape his team, because he said the first 3 games were very planned out and in advance. So now that he's got all of the research that he's wanted to get, I'm very curious to see where he's going to take the team from there. And obviously, when you're going to make your decisions there, it's obviously going to be with an eye towards winning. So, yeah, must win for sure. I think it's weird to see the Chicago Red Stars at the bottom of the table right now, too.
Well, in Portland, right where they're with them, too. It's a bit of a strange situation for sure. Let's look at the host to finish up before Johnson jumps into Preview Monday. They've also been a pleasant surprise in this tournament, I think. And then, of course, the flatter performance on the weekend, midweek, I should say, that has put them into that logjam. They could have set them apart. What do you expect from them in this game?
Honestly, I am very interested to see what Craig Harrington does, because as we talked about earlier, he's clearly outlined who his starters are, but at some point, those players are going to need rest. And they're not really going to get it to the same way the Red Stars got it, who have, 3 extra days off? So I'm going to be interested to see if he tweaks things. If he doesn't tweak them to a large degree, I wouldn't be surprised if they were still competitive, but in the end, I don't know if that's going to be the winning strategy.
I'm going to play the local card on that one and say, are you surprised Ciara King hasn't gotten a start yet, or is that just us not watching practice?
That's a good question. Look, I'm only basing things on like a 3-game sample size of what Harrington likes and what he doesn't. So it always feels like I'm grasping at straws a little bit. But I guess for now, I'll say I'm not surprised that he hasn't started her, but maybe he should think about doing it at some point. Might be fun. I don't know.
Oh, I think it probably would be fun.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Monday, because the games on Monday have a lot of potential. Starting with what is on paper the league's best geographical rivalry, probably the second best rivalry in the league overall. Apologies to the participants, but I do think that North Carolina-Portland is the biggest game in the league, and this is probably the second one. It is between the 6th and 7th place teams in the standings, and the higher of the two is OL Reign. Is this a must-win for the Portland Thorns? I'm sure Mark Parsons, it being the Reign, Mark Parsons might not say no this time, but he sure was not inclined to say yes, I think, on some of the previous ones in this tournament.
I would say probably, again, from my point of view, I'm thinking of this as the final warm-up before the knockout games, where in a second it could be all over, right? So for the obvious reasons, you're going to want to win a game against your rival because that's exactly what you want to do. It's good for team morale. And it obviously means that if you can figure out whatever it is you need to figure out by then maybe you'll just feel a little bit better and more confident. And other people might feel more confident too watching you when you eventually have to play whoever it is you have to play in the knockout rounds.
I had the tiebreakers up on my screen a second ago, of course, then I closed them down. So now I've got them back up again. And the tiebreakers are in order: head-to-head results, then goal difference, then goals scored, then lowest team, yellow and red cards, and then drawing of lots. Of course, we all always root for drawing of lots, although I don't think we're going to get there. It'll be this. Chicago beats Utah. Portland ties or loses, but even if they just tie, the Reign. Chicago then has 4 points. Portland has 2 or 3 points, and Portland plays North Carolina in the quarterfinals. Do we think that might happen?
You're going to need to repeat that for me.
Okay. It's a little early in the morning for all of us as we're recording this, so that's fine. The Reign are one of 5 teams with 4 points. The Thorns have 2 points. The Red Stars have 1. Chicago beats Utah. Therefore, they have 4 points. The Thorns do not win. If they tie, they have 3. If they lose, they still have 2. If the Thorns if that happens, the Thorns are 8th and the Courage are 1st, and the Thorns and the Courage play each other in the quarterfinals. What do we think are the odds of that?
mean, it's the NWSL. Anything can happen. But that doesn't seem entirely unrealistic either. I could see it happening. Why not? But I think that would definitely the Courage will play anybody and probably beat anybody. So that's how that would end, I think.
If the Thorns fans obviously want to win, they want to win over the Reign. But the number one reason I think why this game is a must win for the Thorns is that they get out of the Courage's way. Let somebody else have to play them.
Yeah.
And by the way, if the Thorns win and if the Red Stars don't win, it could be Chicago, North Carolina in the quarterfinals, which Chicago was for a while the team that I thought most capable of knocking North Carolina out. So let's get weird.
Yeah.
And let's look at the last game of the first round, which is North Carolina Sky Blue. Look, obviously the Courage are the overwhelming favorite in this game. But at least for a moment, I don't think it's going to stay this way, but at least for a moment, Sky Blue is in second place in the standings.
Don't you love how wild that table looks? There are 5 teams on the same amount of points.
I love it. And it's not even an actual group stage.
Yeah. But I think...
Go ahead. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking about how this game, the Courage are already locked in first place. Big shock. But so technically they could just like rotate out everybody and give everybody even more time off. So
I don't think Paul Riley's going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but even then, I think you still, in any situation here, the Courage are the favorites to win this game and probably every game they play. So, yeah, I think that's probably how this one is just going to go down. But it'll be, look, the more interesting thing I think will be how Freya Coombe decides to line up her team again after learning what she's learned over the last couple of games. I doubt Midge Purce changes her position, though, especially now that she can see the offense works without Purce necessarily playing a forward role.
Yeah, that seems clear to me, and it's clear that Freya Coombe, her system, she wants the outside backs and the forward wingers overlapping a lot, which is why she put 2 forwards at the outside backs in the last game. And nobody has to like it, but it's clear that that's how she's going to do this. And what is in my mind is it worked once, therefore she's probably going to do it again. I don't know, but it did work. And it worked against what we thought was a better team.
Right.
I want to know one other thing about North Carolina, in addition to the fact that Paul Riley is not going to rotate his team because he's just not.
Right.
I believe, and I'm double checking this, but I'm almost certain of it, that Jessica McDonald has not played yet in this tournament.
I think that's right. And she came into this tournament with an injury, didn't she?
Correct. And, Paul said before their last game that she was just about ready to go, and she didn't. And so you have that, extra ace in your back pocket. Look out, and maybe this is the game where she makes her debut if Riley's going to do any sort of conceding of the fact that he has first place already locked up. What else is on your mind about this tournament, Pardeep?
I think as for on the field play, I have been quite thrilled at how chaotic the final match day before the knockouts is probably going to be. I love a little bit of chaos in soccer, so watching the NWSL is always great. But I've also been quite thrilled at the quality of play, considering, again, how I've said it like 1,000 times at this point, probably, the imperfect preseasons and unideal conditions for everybody. But the play's been pretty good. I'm very happy about that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I was just clearing my throat.
I will close things out here on the show by saying that this weekend is going to be really cool, and not just because of the 4 NWSL games. For those of us down here, Duane, on this side of the border, there are going to be 6 domestic soccer games on Sunday, nationally broadcast. 2 in the NWSL, 3 in MLS, 1 in the USL. And the USL one, by the way, has an NWSL tie because it's in Louisville, where the expansion team, Racing Louisville, is going to play starting next year at that new stadium. And by the way, Pardeep, I think I will take a dark purple Racing Louisville jersey with the lighter purple and the mint green trim. I really like that.
Honestly, I'm a big enthusiast of color schemes. I think this has probably been one of the greatest color combinations I've seen in the sport. I'm really liking the green. I'm really liking that they went with a light purple. Obviously, dark purple is used a little bit in American soccer already. I was so impressed with that kit launching color reveal and the crest too. And the name's not bad either.
No, it's not. And so the green part of it, for those who don't know, if there are any underage listeners on this show, cover your ears. That is a mint julep reference, I believe.
Oh.
That's a great choice still.
And the purple, for those who don't know, the purple stems out of Louisville City, the USL men's team, which in turn stems out of the fact that they used to be Orlando City's USL team. And they never bothered changing colors after they split the affiliation. On top of which, Amanda Duffy, the former NWSL president, who's now Orlando's head of executive vice president of soccer. I get what the exact title is, but she runs the team. She helped get Louisville into the league into the NWSL at the expense of some other candidates, which I found a little iffy. But they do seem to be doing things right, which I'm happy about. And as I mentioned, Sunday, for what is normally a fairly quiet period of the year in soccer, is going to be really cool, and I'm looking forward to that. Pardeep, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
And Duane, as always, thanks. And it was an ambient noise kind of show here today because Duane's got matters going on in the background, as folks can tell, and I've got a rainstorm over here, and if I don't open the window, it just gets impossibly stuffy in my apartment. So that's life in the big cities, as the saying goes. Thanks, everybody, for listening. For Pardeep Cattry and Duane Rollins and our producer, Kevin Laramie, I'm Jonathan Tannenwald, and this has been the Women's Soccer Review here on the Sports Podcasting Network.